All right, next up, we have a board workshop of the San Benito CISD Board of Trustees. I call this meeting to order. The time is 6:10. We move on to item 2.1, finance presentation, procurement and procedures as per board policy and Texas Government Code. Ms. Cervellon.
Yes, sir. So tonight we have put together a presentation and also information for our school board and for our community and our staff as well, so that we can go through our processes, procedures as dictated by board policy and also the Texas Government Code, in effort to ensure that when we procure goods and services, that we're maximizing our taxpayer dollars and giving our students back all the resources that they require. With that, I'm going to call Mr. Cavazos up as he will be walking us through our presentation tonight.
Good evening, President Moreno, members of the board, Superintendent Cervellon. I'm going to go ahead and give you a presentation on procurement policies and procedures that the school district follows. I'm going to start with the simple meaning of procurement, the simple meaning of purchasing, two different things. I'm going to go through the RFP process, the CSP process, the RFQ process, what it requires, what the requirements are according to Texas Education Code. I'm also going to go through a couple of slides on construction procurement using CSPs, RFQs, and we're going to quote, and RFPs, I'm going to quote Texas Government Code 2269 and what it requires, and I will give you the definitions of what those laws say and what they require for us to do during those solicitations. Now, I'm also going to go through our local policies that we have here in our district that we follow, the secretaries and the campuses and the departments. I'm also going to show you all the interlocal agreements that we have, all the purchasing cooperatives that we're members of. If you all have any questions during the time that I'm presenting, please feel free to stop me and ask your question. That's okay. I'm trying to get comfortable here because we might be here for a couple of hours. No, I'm kidding. I'll make it sweet. Okay, so slide. Which one is it? Okay. So the meaning of procurement. Procurement is the act of obtaining goods and services. A lot of people think that procurement means purchasing, actually buying stuff. It's not. Procurement also includes identifying potential suppliers, negotiating contracts, and selecting the supplier that often bests the value for the money. So it's not just go out and buying merchandise wherever we want. We're trying to maximize, like Mr. Leon said, our taxpayer dollars. Purchasing is the actual act of buying the good or service. That's what purchasing is. Procurement is everything that comes before. Roles of procurement are as follows. Managing procurement processes, which means RFPs, CSPs, supplier relations, understand goals and objectives, policy management, and sustainability and ethics. Those are the characteristics of procurement.
And just so that the board knows, I did ask Mr. Cavazos to start with the basics so that way we could go from the most basic level all the way to the more complex level.
Right. So on the next slide here, I'm quoting Texas Education Code 44.031, purchasing contracts. The code states, all school districts contracts for the purchase of goods and services except contracts for the purchase of produce or vehicle fuel valued at $50,000 or more, which in our case, it's $25,000. In the aggregate for a 12-month period shall be made by any of the following methods that provide the best value for the district. TEA gives us the exact 4 methods that we are to use to solicit these services. The first one is competitive bidding. The second one is competitive sealed proposals, or CSP. The third one is request for proposals, RFP, as everybody commonly knows. And the other one is interlocal agreements. So I'm going to give you a little rundown on competitive bidding. Competitive bidding procurement method is used when the requirements are so clearly defined that may be described by detailed specifications. That means if I want to buy a podium, and I know the size, the weight, everything, and I can clearly define it and spec it, I can go ahead and use competitive bidding as a procurement method if I wish to. Now, the competitive bidding requirements are, we also need to advertise in the paper for 2 weeks straight. Bids may be open 14 days after the first advertisement in the newspaper. So we usually advertise on Sundays. After the first advertisement, we start counting 14 days, and then we can open bids anytime after the 14th day. There is an official bid opening where time and place will be named. On the bid package, we will put a bid opening, a date, and a time. Sometimes the proposers will come, and they want to hear the names out loud. So all proposers' names and prices will also be read aloud to the public. Under competitive bidding, there is no negotiations allowed under the competitive bidding. That means the bid that they submit, that's the bid that they cannot alter it, they cannot change price, we cannot negotiate, we cannot do anything. Now, we can still use the selected criteria that TEA gives us to rank the bid. Doesn't mean that the low bid automatically gets it. We still have to use the criteria. So a committee is formed by 3 individuals or more to evaluate and rank the proposals. Usually what we do is if it's a child nutrition bid, we get the child nutrition director involved, or if it's a maintenance bid, we get the maintenance people involved because they're the ones that are procuring the items, and they're the ones with most knowledge of how to evaluate. I myself, I'm also included in the committee. The proposal will be ranked using the selection criteria provided by TEA under Subchapter 5, Purchases and Contracts. So TEA tells us that we may use this criteria in order to evaluate all the proposals that we receive, and they're scored by points. The award must be approved by the board. We bring a recommendation to the board according to the rankings. We rank them 1 through however many proposals they are. And then we bring our recommendation to the board.
I have a question. On the committee, it's recommended by the committee, once you pick up those 5, right, or whatever, however you.
It's recommended by the committee.
The committee.
Yeah, it's a committee
Okay,
effort.
okay.
Yeah. So now, there's 3 or 4 more. We all score them individually.
Okay.
And then after we do the scoring, and then we rank them and say, okay, how did you score them? How did you score them? How did you score them?
I see.
It's not a collaborative effort.
Okay.
Everybody scores on their own.
Okay.
So I'm giving you the selection criteria that TEA gives us. Purchase price, 50 points. All of these points equal up to 100. So the purchase price is a main factor in the selection criteria. The second one is the reputation of the vendor and the vendor's goods and services. So that means, if you know who the vendor is, does he provide good service, good products, stuff like that, you score him accordingly. The quality of the vendor's goods and services, 10 points. The extent to which the goods and services meet the district's needs, that's another 10 points. The vendor's past relationship with the district. Has the vendor ever done any work for the district? If he hasn't, then you score him accordingly. Total long-term cost of the district to acquire the vendor's goods and services, financial statements. So the vendors know that we're going to be ranking them by this, so they should be turning in their financial statements. If they don't turn in their financial statements, then we score them accordingly. The what? They should be submitting the financial statements because that selection criteria specifically says financial statements.
Even though they turn it in before?
Yeah, each bid is independent. Just because I said I responded to a bid 5 weeks ago, it's the same. No, they have to turn in all their paperwork evidence.
I have a question, Mr. Cavazos.
Yes, ma'am. Yes, sir.
On the criteria that, it's up to 50 points, right, for the
Right.
purchase price?
For purchase price.
Okay, you can say 35. or-
Oh, yeah.
Okay.
So
It's up to 50 points.
everybody can score them accordingly.
I see.
You give the lowest price 50.
Okay,
The next one, so you can go in increments of 2, 5, 10. It doesn't matter.
Right, right.
So you can score however you want.
okay.
Okay, so long-term cost to the district. The next one is the impact on the ability of districts to comply with laws and rules relating to historically underutilized business. That's if they were registered with the state as a hub vendor. If they are registered to the state, you give them the points. Vendor's ultimate parent company or majority owner has its principal place of business in the state or employs at least 500 persons in the state location. Normally, when we go out for bid, a lot of for the most part, all of them are here local. So they're all here within it. Another relevant factor specifically listed in the request for proposal. So this can be any other relevant factor that you may think of that would become part of the evaluation.
So with competitive bidding.
That's
you do-
competitive bidding. Now, I do want to mention one thing. Competitive bidding it was used a lot in the 80s and 90s. Competitive bidding is hardly used anymore since TEA came out with the RFP and the CSP. And the only reason why is because the RFP and the CSP gives the district more flexibility, more negotiating power, more, to bring the price down, to cut down in time. See, competitive bidding won't do that. If they bid on something and they tell you we'll deliver in 100 days, it's 100 days. With CSP and RFP, we're able to negotiate those terms. And so therefore, competitive bidding is, I'm not saying it's never used, but it's hardly used anymore. The ones that are more popular are the ones that are more coming up here. So requests for competitive sealed proposals, or what they call CSPs. So competitive sealed proposals are awarded based on best value to the district. Again, you need to advertise for 2 weeks straight in the local newspaper. Proposals may be open 14 days after the first advertisement, just as the competitive bid. The district shall receive, publicly open, and read aloud the names of the offerers and all prices stated in each proposal. That means we have to have an official bid opening, an official record. The bidders or the offerers come to the bid opening. We open the bids right there in front of them. They're not open. We open right there in front of them. We read the offerer's name, and we read the totals out loud.
In essence, they're sealed until you all get together and open them together, right?
Right. So a committee is formed again, 3 or more people to evaluate the proposals. The district shall evaluate the proposals using the same selection criteria that I had showed you before for competitive bidding. Texas Education Code 4.031. We gather a committee and we rank them accordingly, just how I was explained to you before competitive bidding. It's the same thing with the CSP. The CSPs are normally used when awarding construction projects. RFPs are hardly used for construction, or competitive bidding maybe every once in a while. But usually, mainly, competitive sealed proposals is the way to go when we're awarding construction projects, because it gives the district flexibility of negotiating with the contractor, negotiating on time, negotiating on whatever factors relevant may be in order to complete the job. The district shall select the offerer that scores the highest using the selection criteria provided by TEA. So all of the members of the committee will score, and then we evaluate them and we rank them and we total up the points. Whoever comes up with the most points is the one that gets awarded the project. In determining the best value for the district is not restricted to considering price alone, but may consider any other factors stated in the selection criteria. Price does have a heavy weight, 50%, but there are a lot of other factors in the selection criteria that we use. So they can be the lowest, but maybe they've never done a job for the district before, or maybe they have no past relationship. Yes, sir.
So what if you have 2 competitors that ended up with the same amount of points?
I'm going to come up to the, I'm going to compare both of them. So, determining the best value in the district is not restricted. Okay, the committee's recommendation will be taken to the Board of Trustees for approval. Once the board gets all this, you're going to have all the ranking sheets, all the scores, how they ranked them, and then we're going to come up with our recommendation according to whoever scored the highest. A bid tabulation will be provided along with all the rankings and all their offers.
Mr. Cavazos, I would like to say something here. So when you have these sealed proposals, you do rank them, you do present the rankings to the the board is going to have the final say.
Yes,
But the board also has discussion if there are two companies or two organizations that have the same amount of points.
Right.
And then they can look at, not only that, where the points lie.
Right.
And do you want to elaborate a little bit more on that? Because I think that that's what Mr. Corona is asking. So what happens when your administration comes and you have used people on the committee that have knowledge base on construction or end users, like you said, when we're looking at supplies, that are going to be using the supplies, or going to be using the products. So the people on the committee have some level of expertise when they're looking at these sealed
Absolutely.
proposals, right?
Absolutely.
So-
That's why when we go out for competitive seal proposals, I try to form a committee that is closer or relevant to the product that we're going out for bid on. Like I say, if it's child nutrition, we involve child nutrition. If it's maintenance, we invite maintenance. If it's transportation, I get Ms. Martinez to be part of the committee and maybe one of her bus drivers or something like that. But yeah, every bid that we go out for always have some relevance in it because I don't know everything. That's why I rely on the experts. I call them the experts because they're the best in their field, to rely in order to make a bit better, proper, or to give the board better, proper information to make a better decision. So the next one would be request for proposals. That's simply known as RFP. A request for proposals is another procurement method that generates the receipt of sealed proposals for the procurement of goods and services. Again, we have to advertise for 2 weeks, straight in the local newspaper. The RFP is not required. So on an RFP, according to TEA Education Code, an RFP is not required to be sealed by law and may be opened prior to the bid deadline and logged in properly. They're just RFPs. This is maybe like our general merchandise. Yeah, we receive them, it's not really nothing, so there's gonna be an approved vendor list, so we go opening them and we start logging them down and who's bringing them in. Now, if it's procuring an item, we normally don't do that. We normally have a bid opening. But that's what the law says. Everything I'm giving you here are definitions of the law. That's what the law states. A committee will be formed in order to properly evaluate the RFP after the bid deadline. Under the RFP committee, we'll use a selection criteria, and again, it's the same selection criteria that I showed you under competitive bidding. Same one, with the same point recommendation and everything. A recommendation will be made by the committee and taken to the board for approval. Price is not a determining factor, but weighs heavily in the selection of the process. Like I showed you before, price 50%, that's a lot. RFPs are usually utilized to purchase goods and services that are well-defined by the district. This is almost close to competitive bidding, but with an RFP, we have the ability or flexibility to negotiate with the contractor or negotiate with the vendor, whoever, what we're purchasing. So that's the difference between the RFP and the competitive bidding.
Okay, so again, so with our sealed proposals, that's what's most appropriate for construction.
Yes, ma'am.
What is most appropriate when we go out for RFPs? Give us examples.
Well, like the general merchandise, we do our RFPs. What else? Say we're buying furniture for a campus. We build a new campus, we're buying furniture, we use an RFP. Any specialized equipment that like Kate or something may need that costs a lot of money, and we go out for bid. I know one time we went out for bid on a table that Kate has, that we will use an RFP. Situations like that.
And services? Services?
Services, yes.
What type of services?
RFP, absolutely. Professional, consultants. Professional services, we'll get into it in a little bit.
Sir, I got a question.
Yes, sir.
Sir, does it depend on what kind of monies you're gonna be using?
Does
Does it depend on the RFPs or the whole process of the purchasing? Or is it determined by the monies you're gonna be using, whether it's state money, whether it's federal money or stuff like that?
No.
Or it's all across the board?
No, it's all the same. Yeah,
RFP?
all the the procurement method
The
that
procurement
TA gave
method.
us is using state, local, and federal.
So it's all the same?
Yeah.
Okay, sir, thank you.
Okay, I'm gonna show you a little bit about the differences between a CSP and an RFP. A CSP is normally used for any and all construction projects, as we have discussed. A CSP must be sealed and open, and date and time as advertised in the newspaper. It cannot be opened until, say, bid opening is December 24th at 3 p.m. We have to open it, we have to wait till 3 p.m. We cannot open them before. We have to wait till 3 p.m., so everybody's present, and then we go ahead and open them up. Then the district will publicly open and read aloud the name of the offers and all prices stated in each proposal. On an RFP used to procure goods and services that provide the best value and are well-defined by the district. That means if we have a real good set of specifications that we can use the RFP because we know exactly what we want. The only thing is that on RFP, we have to put there the phrase, or owner-approved equal, because we cannot say, well, I want that podium and that podium only. We're probably excluding a lot of other vendors. We don't want to do that. So the RFP does not have to be sealed and may be opened upon receipt of the proposal. I don't practice this that much. The only time I do it is maybe on general merchandise, professional consultants, meals and catering, just to see who turned them in. So they're long lists, so we try to start working on them and try to get all their paperwork together. The district will only read publicly the names of the offerers. No prices required to be read aloud on an RFP. We are only supposed to, according to law, only supposed to read the name of the persons or companies that submitted a proposal. We're not obligated to say any prices.
Mr. Cavazos, I have a question again. So on the point system that we use.
Yes, ma'am.
Or the rubric that we're using, is that something that San Benito CISD created and decide to use those
Yeah, the
weights?
selection criteria you're talking about? Well,
Like
that's.
the 50 points for the lowest
So
price?
that was created probably way back when, that we've been still using the same points.
Mm-hmm.
Now, I've been doing some research, and from my understanding, we can change the points on the selection criteria, but it would have to come up to the board for their approval.
Does
Right.
it proportionately change? Does it have to be proportionately changed?
Excuse me?
Does it have to be proportionately changed? Does it have to be proportionately changed?
Do we have to,
Does it have to be,
shoot, sorry.
Oh, sorry, so.
does it have to be proportionately changed? Like if we changed it from a 100-point scale to a 50-point scale, the price would be
If we- yeah.
25 points instead of 50 points?
If we want to change the point, like we can change price to 60, 75, and then we can change all the other ones accordingly, but they have to equal to 100.
They have to equal to 100?
Yeah.
Okay, the
Yeah.
scale has to.
So if you want price to weigh more heavily, you can make it 75 points and then make it's really a board. I mean, we can make a recommendation.
But you said that each category, the selection criteria, that's directly from TEA subchapter 5.
But
Okay.
So request for qualifications. Request for qualifications is, I'm quoting TEA law, and it's very vague, but the request for qualifications is generally used for professional services where the respondents are evaluated solely on their qualifications to do the work. A committee will review the RFQ submitted and select the best value for the district. An RFQ does not require to disclose price until the firm has been awarded the contract. So that means on an RFQ, the board evaluates the respondents, they hire them based on their qualifications, they take it to the board for a vote, it gets approved. After that is when you start negotiating price. That's according to law.
So on an RFP, so this is that, once awarded, the firm will negotiate the district on a price. So RFP, the negotiation does not come after the,
On the RFP? Yeah, you use the selection criteria on the RFP, and that's, you rank them accordingly, whoever gets the highest, that's what it is. So now on this, you're basing on, it's like a job interview.
but the RFP,
Like they're doing a resume.
so in the RFP, you already have a price attached to the quote. Sorry, I had a cold, so I didn't want to. On the RFP, you have the price attached to the quote.
Right.
And then it's selected, but you can still negotiate after the,
On the RFP? Yes.
okay, and then with this
Now, the
one,
board has to approve the recommendation, so usually the negotiation probably takes 44 weeks.
before, okay.
Yeah, it would have to.
And it, as the caveat would be, it can't go over the price that was submitted.
So RFQ does not disclose price, so that's really all on qualifications. Now,
Also, Mr. Cavazos, maybe if you would explain that the RFP is a proposal that has very specific criteria that needs to be met, as where the RFQ is just on the qualifications of the, consultant or the person. I think that's
right.
where
The
it's
selection
getting
criteria that
great.
is given to us is the one that generates or ultimately decides who's going to be ranked higher, who's going to score the higher points.
And this is also usually done by a committee or RFQ.
Yes, ma'am. Everything we do is done by a committee. It's not done by a single person or anything like that. I put 3, but sometimes could be 4 of us, could be 5 of us, depending on the amount or the project that we're doing. If it's a big project, we want more minds in there.
Okay.
So that's all on RFQs. On construction procurement methods most commonly used. First one is competitive bidding. This is given to us by TEA. Second one's competitive seal proposals, design build, and job order contracts. On construction procurement and competitive bidding is a procurement method by which government entity contracts with a contractor for the construction, alteration, rehabilitation, or repair of a facility. This is according to Texas Government Code 2269-101. The government entity shall select or designate an architect or engineer to prepare the construction documents required for a project to be awarded by competitive bidding. So that means under competitive bidding, before we even start the project, we need to have an architect and an engineer on board in order to start with construction documents. So like that, when we do go out for bid, the contractors or the offers who are going to give us an offer, have every piece of information that they need in order to fulfill the project.
So here's where you need to have the scope of the work and where the design comes into play.
Right.
Because if the design changes after, then the price would be
Will change.
something where
Absolutely,
you'd have your change order.
absolutely.
Okay.
So we're the ones responsible for the
So the next one, the government, okay. The government entity shall prepare a request for competitive bids that includes bid documents, estimated budget, project scope, estimated project completion date, and other information that the contractor may require to submit a bid. Now, this is all according to Texas Government Code 2269-103.
Mr.
All these
Cavazos.
things need to be in place as soon as we go out for bid.
So does this construction procurement competitive bidding fall into play even if we're talking about bond funds?
Okay, so when we're talking bond funds, I think, from what I recall in the last one, the board is the one that has the final say-so of which procurement method you're gonna use. So that comes up to the board. Whoever's presenting will give you the different methods, and the board selects the best method. Yes, sir.
But we're not using competitive bidding, and we have not used competitive bidding when it comes to construction. Have we used it recently?
No, not competitive bidding.
No. So we've been using,
Everything has been request for competitive
Request
seal
for-
proposals on construction.
RFPs,
That's some RFPs. On minor construction, it's been RFPs.
right, but for
But-
others, it would be the
Right.
RFP.
correct.
Sir, so Mr. Cavazos, so the current construction, the little small construction projects we got going on right now, those are all RFPs, right?
Which ones?
Like the tennis courts?
Like the tennis courts or the
The tennis courts was actually a design build.
okay.
The tennis courts was a design build, and I'm gonna get to that one right now.
Okay, so when you're saying here that there has to be an architect or an engineer designing, so for example, if we're gonna do a parking lot, did we have an engineer or an architect design that parking lot before we approved of that?
Did we have one?
Yes, sir.
No,
No.
but we should have had one.
But we
Should
did,
have had it.
So what I'm saying now, in retrospect, okay? So what I'm saying now is now the district is liable for that parking lot. If something happens or it doesn't go through fruition like it's supposed to, like the way they presented it, or the way it was, voted by the board, right? So now the district is responsible for any issues that pertain to that?
Yeah, because we don't have an architect or an engineer, is what you're saying?
Yes, sir.
Yeah.
Okay, good. Okay.
I think I'd like for Mr. Weller to help us with that, because it sounds like it's more like a legal question.
Yeah, I would say that that is digging into legal issues right there. I think what you're talking about is contract scope, maybe, in terms of what the district is liable for. And you have to look at the contract to evaluate a question like that.
But right now, we're just talking about the different ways, the different methods that we could have used. Since we didn't use competitive building for, say, the parking lots, that's why we didn't require the architect or engineer.
I think we're getting a little, I think what Mr. Cavazos is talking about is just the process in general.
Yeah, so let me just take it a step back. So if we were to use competitive bidding on whatever it is we decide, then this is what needs to happen if we're gonna go out for a competitive bid. And that's all the information that's being presented to us right now.
It's just information being provided.
That's correct. This does not correlate at all with our parking lot project and the way that we procured it or that we went into the contract.
Right.
So
all
go ahead.
this is informational, for informational purposes.
Yeah, all
only,
of this
not
thing
tied
I'm
into
giving
any
you
of
is
our-
just
it.
definitions, what the meanings of CSPs, RFPs, RFQs are. A lot of people don't know maybe what an
Right.
RFP is. They don't know what an RFQ is. This presentation is just simply to give you
Informational.
those and to educate you a little bit more.
Yes, sir. Thank you.
Okay, the government entity shall receive, publicly open, and read aloud. This is almost like the competitive bidding at first with construction, same thing. The only difference is no later than the 7th day after the date of the contract is awarded, the governmental entity shall document the basis of its selection and shall make the evaluations public. That is law. That's what it states. Texas Government Code 2269. Okay, so competitive seal proposals is a procurement method by which governmental entities request proposals, ranks the offerers, negotiates the contract, and then contracts with a general contractor for the construction, rehabilitation, altercation, or repair of a facility. In selecting CSP as a delivery method, the district shall follow certain procedures provided by Texas Government Code. The governmental entity shall select or designate an architect or engineer to prepare construction documents for any project. Again, I think in construction, where you first start, every law says that. We need to have an architect and an engineer. The district shall prepare competitive seal proposals that includes construction documents, selection criteria, and weighted value for each criterion. Estimated budget, project scope, estimated project completion date, and other information that contract may need to complete the project. So prior to going out to this, giving him construction documents and all that stuff, he needs to have everything that he needs to do in order to construct the building that we're building or whatever the parking lot or whatever the case may be.
So when we go out for a competitive, if we were to choose competitive sealed proposals as the method of procurement in this case, the companies that would submit a competitive sealed proposal would have our selection criteria, plus the weighted value for each.
Yeah, so we have a select, it has to be published, the weighted value of each criteria. It has to be published on that. In other words, the bidders need to know how we're gonna evaluate them.
Mr. Cavazos, so why are we governed by the Texas Government Code?
Why do we what?
Why are we governed by the Texas Government Code?
Why are we governed by the Texas? Well, I think Texas Education Code doesn't really give a lot of details on construction. Texas Government Code does. Texas Government Code also says any governmental entity, which means city,
Which we are.
state, local. So Texas Government Code kind of,
So what are they trying to protect?
right, the district.
And taxpayer dollars,
Yes, sir.
right?
Yes, ma'am.
So that's why we have these different ways of going into any sort of procurement practice, including
Yeah.
construction, because we are trying to protect the taxpayer dollar, because we are a government agency. So that's why it's really important that we look at how this is delineated. And so when we say we need an architect or an engineer, and we're going out for bids, when we go out, we need to know what we are actually going to have that project, that scope of that project,
Right.
very delineated, so we can make sure that we are going to expend that sum of money, right?
Correct. On the first presentation, I did RFPs, I quoted Texas Education Code, but like I said, Texas Education Code is really big when it comes to construction. That's why we follow
The government.
Texas Government Code.
Government code.
Eddie, if I can jump in, the education code actually states that it applies to bidding other than construction matters. So it's interpreted to apply to goods and services, but not construction matters. Just want to add that clarification for you.
Okay, the district shall receive, publicly open, and read aloud the names and all the monetary proposals made by the offers. No later than the 45th day after the date on which the proposals are opened, the district shall evaluate and rank each proposal submitted in relation to the published selection criteria. So that means we can't wait we open bids and then evaluate them 2 months later. We have to do it within the 45 days.
And we also can't change the selection criteria.
Excuse me?
Sorry. And we also can't change the selection criteria.
And the district shall select the offeror that submits a proposal that offers the best value for the governmental entity based on the selection criteria and the CSP and its ranking evaluation of the offer. This is the same as all the other CSPs. You rank them accordingly. Whoever ranks highest is the one that gets the work. The district shall first attempt, now this is the negotiating part, usually which happens in construction. The district shall first attempt to negotiate a contract with a selected offeror. The district and architect or engineer may discuss the selected offer options for a scope or time modification and any price change associated with the modification. If the district is unable to negotiate a contract with the selected offeror, the district shall formally and in writing end negotiations with that offeror and proceed to the next offeror in the order of the ranking evaluations until a contract is reached. So that means you can go to the first one. The first one doesn't want to negotiate, you end negotiations with him, you go to the next one. You keep on doing that until you get a contract.
Keep doing that until you get the one that will negotiate. So you'll do that until you get to the one that will negotiate, and that's the one you're gonna work with?
If that's the one giving us the best value for the district, yes. And then this step will continue until a contract is reached. That is why I think it's very important that, probably they say we have to have an architect or engineer for when we're negotiating, they're protecting the interests of the district.
So, just for clarity's sake, and I know that a question that has arisen, so what happens when we decide that somebody does not have, the proposal is not filled out in the way that it should, or they don't meet the level of that qualification? What do we do when it comes to that? So let's just say that somebody doesn't have the experience, if we're going for an RFQ.
Are you talking on an
An RFQ or an RFP, any rubric that you use, let's just say that somebody ends up with a total score of a 40 and it's out of 100. At that point, what happens?
And if you hire the one with the 40, or?
Well, I mean, if we're
No.
considering,
So
or what do
usually
you
when you're
do?
using the criterion, whoever scores the highest is the one that you award the job to.
My question in reference to qualifications in any type, whether it's a request for proposals or request for qualifications, the district sets out the criteria for whatever it is that we're going to purchase or we're trying to procure, right?
Yes, sir.
They set up all the different criteria needed or the qualifications that we want. So right away, you've got 6, 7 companies submitting proposals or submitting qualifications or what have you, right? Okay, so you, as a group, as a committee, you go step number 1, experience. And I'm just throwing stuff off the top of my head.
Oh, yeah.
Step number 2, so-and-so. So if any given organization that submitted a bid doesn't have that criteria that we set forth, is that automatically thrown out? Or can you still keep
You can kind,
considering them?
you don't kind of throw it out, you just set it to
Put
the
it
side
aside.
and go to the next one, and then if you find a more qualified one,
Okay.
then that's what it is.
All
Now,
right, so my question is, it doesn't necessarily, because if they don't meet any, one or two of the criteria that the district set forth, that does not mean that they are ineligible
If they- yeah,
necessarily?
if they don't
They're
meet the-
still in the game?
if they don't meet the qualifications,
Then they're out.
they should be,
That's my question.
they should
Okay.
be. If they don't meet the I mean, why do you want to, hire somebody that?
Right, but, okay, I just want to make sure that.
That's what the law states. Now,
That's what I mean, you put it to the side. I mean, this one didn't meet this criteria, they're out.
right.
All right.
Under RFQ,
Like-
there's not really a selected criteria that's given out, but it could be given out by the district, and we could rank them on points accordingly.
So if, for example, one of the selection do they get, on the selection criteria, if they don't have whatever is on there, do they
So-
get 0 points?
So 0 is a number.
Mm-hmm.
0 is a number. For instance, they don't turn in financial statements. How can you evaluate their financial statements or the healthy of their company if you don't have them? You give them a 0. Because they didn't turn it in.
For that section,
Yeah.
zero.
If they've never done any work for the school, and it says there, past vendor relationship with the district, if they've never done any, 0.
But that doesn't disqualify them.
Now, this is up to everybody, everybody scores the way they want to. I'm not gonna tell you, they don't have this, so it has to be a 0, no.
And that's per criteria. It's not that they get a 0 just completely because they're missing one thing.
They
Right,
just get
it
a
has to
0
be-
on that section of the
Right,
criteria.
only on that section, and then at the end, all the numbers are totaled.
I'm sorry. If I can ask, when it comes to board members, we're not sitting here coming up with criteria for these bidding that you're gonna have, right? Do we as board members decide?
Not that I've seen, no.
Okay, so that's what
Not
I'm
in my
trying to.
experiences, I've been here.
I'm trying to make sure that the public understands this also, and that we understand, that I understand personally. So who comes up with this criteria? What has been done in the past?
So the criteria is given to us by TEA, and that's the criteria we use. The points have always been there. Like I said, the board has the option to change the points if they want to, have price way more heavily. But TEA is the one that gives us that criteria.
Okay, so TEA gives you criteria, but the board has the ability
Has
to
the
tell
ability
you
to adjust the
change-
points, yeah.
Change the points. Okay, thank you.
But it has to equal to 100. That's the.
Yeah,
that's
as
the
long
thing.
as everything equals to 100.
One of the things I want to clarify, Mr. Cavazos, and maybe I misunderstood, or maybe it was stated correct. Dr. Cruz mentioned, so there's, in that criteria or whatever, a person doesn't have any experience, or an organization does not have any experience working for a school. So then you get a 0, but you stated right now that everybody on that committee can give them their whatever
Yeah,
score. So,
there's-
but I mean, it is what it is. If you have
Right.
no experience with a school, it's a 0.
Right, it is what it is.
But somebody on the committee can give them a 5?
They could.
That's
I mean,
crazy.
I cannot dictate what they score. I cannot dictate what Ms. Leon score. I cannot dictate what you
Wow.
score. You score them according to the way you want to.
The
I can't sit there and say, hey, you need to score them like this. As a matter of fact, when we start scoring, I explain to all of them, okay? Everybody
The
scores
criteria.
individually.
I think the important thing is that's why I came up with that scenario, see somebody had an overall score of a 40. I mean, that would be somebody that you would not want to hire, 40 out of 100. So it would be, that's why he questioned, and you're still considering this person? Because now, as a corporate body, we are going to explain to our constituents, hey, we went ahead and went with the one that had 40 points over the one that had 95 points, right? And so this criteria, this rubric that is very connected to getting the best company or person on board, that is why we go through these lengths to make sure that we're getting the best qualified individual or company to come on board and to also maximize our taxpayer dollars. So that's what all of this is about, this whole process. I don't know, if you wanted to add something, Mr. Cavazos,
No,
Mr. Weller?
Mr. Weller, do you want to add anything on that?
I think what Ms. Servione was stating was correct, and there's a couple of different stages at which qualifications and bids can be examined. The first one is the scoring committee can evaluate the qualifications or the experience or whatever the criteria may be in comparison to the list and score the bidder accordingly. And then, the scoring then goes before the board, and the board, takes into account the scoring and, makes a decision as to which bidder offers the best value for the district. It may be that one bidder has a low price proposed, but does not have adequate experience. Or another bidder may have a high price proposed and be deficient in other areas. And so there's a couple of different places as part of the process where those types of qualities can be considered by the district. One is the committee, and the second one is the board.
So are the board members automatically the committees, or does the district have other committees?
No.
Are we as board members the committee, or does the district select specific committees for specific
No.
projects?
No. They're all random.
The board should not be the committee. The committee should bring their findings to the board, and then the board discusses it, and then they vote.
I thought that's what Mr. Cavazos had explained earlier, that
Yes.
the committee that's formed, it's gonna be one person probably from that one department and so forth.
But my concern is what Ramiro said, if
Somebody gets a fine, but he has no serious dealing with the district, he wouldn't be fair for the other individuals.
So that's,
Where do we?
and I think that that's where the multiple committee members help, and the same thing happens with an interview process. When you go into an interview process, even if there's an outlier, most of you are pretty much on target, right? Pardon me? An outlier?
An outlier?
Okay, so, oh my gosh, sorry, there's so much information. To Mr. Silva's point, the 0 points would make sense. It would make sense, but the thing is, if you're on, exactly, so if you say like, okay, if they, like, say I'm not on a committee, no board members are on these committees, but say if I was in Mr. Cavazos' shoes and I had the proposals in my hand and I'm looking at it, I'm like, okay, if they have 0 to 3 projects with the school district, they get 5 points. If they have 3 to 5 projects with the school district, they get 7 points. If they have more than 5 projects with the school district, I'll give them all 10 points. So in that case, I would give them 5 points because they had 0 to 3 in my mind. Like if that was the scale I had developed. But say you're on the same committee too and you're like, no projects, 0 points. It's up to the person making those.
But aren't those, what you're saying right now to me, doesn't make sense, and I'm not trying to be derogatory, but we are not the ones awarding those points. Aren't the points already set?
The points are already
This
set.
area, this portion is 10 points. This portion is 5 points.
Exactly, so like, we're on the example of experience. So experience with the school district is worth,
5 points.
Yeah, those points are the maximum.
Right.
The maximum.
Right?
Right.
yeah, so that's the maximum.
There you go.
Right, that's a
So
maximum.
if they have more than 5 projects with the school district, I'm giving them all 5 points. But if they have 3 to 5 projects with the school district, I'm giving them 2 points.
There you go.
And if they have 0 to 3 projects with the school district, I'm giving them 1 point.
Right, and that's
So
correct.
it-
It's very subjective.
It's whoever the person decides.
It's like they said before, on price weighs 50, so usually the lower price, you give them all 50. The next one, 45, the next one, 40, the
And
next
the-
one, 35.
On sidebar conversations over here, so we don't make any decisions when it comes to, I don't know, what was the last thing? The only thing I can remember is the boilers. So the boilers that were presented to us one time, that was a committee of school district officials,
For
yourself,
which project?
the boilers.
The boilers?
This was a while back. That's the first thing that came into my mind. The chillers, there you go, the chillers.
The only time the board is involved is when they hire the agent of record, I believe, and, what else? The lawyer, the attorney, the audit.
So there are instances where the board is the person
Well, the
grading
board
these
is the one
selection
that
criteria.
hires those professional services.
Okay, because that was something that Ms. Lopez brought up right now. So sometimes the board is the committee, but when it comes to only hiring of the board attorney, the agent of record.
Well, maybe only for those certain ones,
Okay.
and I think they're not very many.
They're not very many.
But for the most part, it's all school district committee, if it's all another.
And then that gets presented to us.
Right.
So they were chillers, not boilers.
There's boiler rooms over
Yeah.
Okay,
Sorry
but
about-
what's important to note is that the committee consists of people, like if we're gonna purchase technology, we're gonna have Mr. English, we're gonna have Ms. Peña on there. The committee
Absolutely.
consists of people that are going to give the points based on, the fact that,
Like I said, they're the
They're
experts in their
experts,
field.
right?
They're the experts in their field, so I personally rely on them to get a clearer picture. And I even asked them, you want to bring one of your other staff as part of the committee? Or I'll get one of my staff. Janie has
Correct.
participated in the committee before. So, yeah, only the people that are knowledgeable.
and then we bring that information to you because we've already had that committee of experts. We've discussed it, and then it comes to you to have deeper discussions. If there are any questions or negotiations to be taking place. Again, keeping in mind that we're trying to get the best value for what we're going to purchase and to expend those taxpayer dollars correctly.
And the school district does a really good job of having those people on the committee present at the board meetings so that we
Correct.
can question them on why certain
The
companies.
committee, you mean? Yeah. Why you scored them like that, we could. So the next construction procurement method is a design build. This is the way we did our tennis courts at Riverside. A district may use design build method for construction, rehabilitation, alteration, or repair of a building or associated structure. A design build firm must be a sole proprietor, partnership, corporation, or other legal entity team that includes an architect, an engineer, and a construction contractor. That means that whoever is gonna give us has to have everything on that on board. The district shall select an architect or engineer independent of the design build firm to act as a government entity's representative for the duration of the project. That means we need to have an architect and an engineer with us to look out for our interests, not the contractors. The district shall prepare a request for qualifications that includes general information on the project site, project scope, budget, special systems, selection criteria, and weighted value, and any other information the design-build firm may need for the project. So the way a design-build works is you go to an RFQ. I believe you all know the process. We did it with the tennis courts. And then you go to the RFP once you selected the firms that are qualified to do the work. For each firm that responds to the RFQ, the district shall evaluate the firm's experience, technical competence, and capability to perform, past performance, and other appropriate factors submitted by the firm's response. The district shall first attempt to negotiate a contract with the selected firm. If the district is unable to negotiate a contract with the selected firm, the district shall in writing, this is almost like a CSP. You end it in writing, negotiate with the next firm until you reach a contract. Again, on a design build, no later than the 7th day of the date of contract award, the district shall make the rankings publicly under section 2269.301 of the Texas Government Code. So that means every proposal or every ranking should be publicly published according to the Government Code. Design firm build shall supply a set of construction documents for the completed project to the district at the conclusion of the construction. Keep in mind that the design build firm they're the ones that they design it, they're gonna build it, so at the end of the project, we should get a full, complete set of construction documents for our records. And of course, we still have our architect and our engineer that are looking out for the district's interests. That's when job order contracting. A job order contracting is, it's It's a procurement method used by maintenance, altercation, renovation, remediation, construction of a facility when the work is of recurring nature, but the delivery time, type, and quantities or work required are indefinite. That's Texas Government Code 2269. The district may award a job order contract to one or more job order contractors in connection with each solicitation. We can solicit for job order contracting, or they have job order contracting on purchasing co-ops. Normally, I think when we've done a couple of job order contracting, they go to co-ops, but we can solicit. A contractor shall provide payment and performance bonds based on the amount of any job order contract, which means a payment bond is anything, if it's over $25,000, requires a payment bond. If it's over $100,000, it requires a payment and performance bonds. That means the payment bond is if the contractor doesn't pay his subcontractors, instead of them going after the school, they go after their bond. The performance bond is if their construction is not up to par, we can go after their bond to, offset the costs of what we have to do. So that's it on construction. The next part of purchasing that the school district utilizes, interlocal agreements. Interlocal agreement gives the district flexibility to increase the efficiency and effectiveness of the local governments by authorizing them to contract with one another and with agencies of the state of procurement of goods and services. This is your TASB, Texas Smart Buy, Texas Comptroller's, State Comptroller's Office. We're all part of all those co-ops, and I'm going to be showing you a list of all the co-ops that we're members of. Interlocal agreements are normally used when renewing policies such as insurance, workers' compensation, or unemployment. Those are normally approved by the board. The interlocal agreements have to be approved by the board. Normally, those interlocal agreements don't change, but if there is a change, say, for instance, TASB has to come back to the board, and I think this happened just recently, maybe like 4, 5, 6 months ago. We had Mr. Adrian Peña from TASB come because there was a change in the interlocal agreement, so it has to be approved by the board again. So it also gives the district more flexibility in providing what the district may need without going through bidding process, and saves time to procure what the district may require or may need. An interlocal contract must be authorized by the governing board. In our case would be the San Benito School District. We cannot enter into an interlocal agreement without board approval. Interlocal agreements usually do not have term limits. The only way that an agreement can be amended is if the change in the agreement, just like I said before, then it would have to come back before the board and they would have to be approved. These are purchasing cooperatives that the districts are members of. The district may participate in a cooperative purchasing program with another local government organization of the state. If a district participates in a cooperative purchasing program, satisfies any law requiring it seek competitive bids. Here's a list of all the purchasing cooperatives San Benito CISD are members of. Buy board, which is most commonly used. By the way, the buy board, the more we utilize them, we actually get 2 or 3% back. So say we use buy board worth $1 million, we get $200,000 back as a rebate check to the district, and I think that's coming up pretty soon. I think them and TIPS are the only ones that offer rebate programs.
So that statement, that clause there, it satisfies any law requiring it to seek competitive bids.
Mm-hmm.
That means if we go with our any purchasing cooperative, we don't have to do anything else?
You don't have to bid it out.
Okay.
Choice Partners is the one that utilizes more child nutrition. Epic 6, purchasing cooperatives. Goodbye is the Corpus area. PACE, Purchasing Cooperative of America. Region 1, which is our local Region 1 here in Edinburgh. TIPS, Purchasing Cooperative. TCPN, Texas Smart Buy, just run by the Texas State Comptroller's Office. U.S. Communities, Sourcewell, Central Texas Purchasing Alliance, Allied States Purchasing Cooperative. So those are all of the cooperatives that we are members of.
Okay, so did you want to go ahead and review what we decided as far as it goes with construction or anything? We did our roofing that way, we did our lighting project, we went with a company off the co-op. I know that we also had during our audit, our forensic audit, that indicated we might have not received the best price, because we should have gone about it in a different manner. So do you want to go ahead and tell them how we've updated that, our procedure when it comes to any sort of construction or anything that is going to be millions of dollars, worth of work to our
Yeah.
buildings?
So, the board has the sole discretion of selecting the procurement method for construction. We can bring it up as an agenda item, and it's approved by the board. It's either a CSP, we done it years back, I remember when my first tour here. And I believe since we're getting a fresh start, maybe we should do it again. So, that in place, if the board does approve that, any construction project that's gonna be done is gonna be done under competitive seal proposals as the board approved. No other method. It has to be competitive seal proposals, if that's what the board approves.
So if you remember our recommendation also from, coming from our forensic audit from Weaver and Tidwell, was that we do our construction by CSP, competitive seal proposals, or RFPs. Because that way we can get the most competitive price, and we
Right.
can have the negotiating power that
Exactly.
we need whenever we go into any kind of altering our buildings or new construction or remodeling,
Yeah.
et cetera.
In reality, I think that's why TEA came out with the RFP and the CSP, because before competitive bidding didn't give the district an opportunity to negotiate anything. The price is a price, and that's what it is, and that's what you're gonna get. Under CSP and RFP, you have more flexibility, and it caters more, protects more of the district's interests. And I'm not saying that's not protecting the contractor, but I think at this point in time, we're looking after our interests and make sure that we are, like Ms. Alveon said, spending our taxpayers' dollars wisely. But yeah, everything is done through the RFP and the CSP as far as construction. So I don't know, we're gonna be proposing that maybe at a later date. Technology purchases. All technology purchases are run by the Technology Department for pricing accuracy and standardization of computer equipment throughout the district. So sometimes I get requisitions and there's 100 laptops, so I call Mr. English, sir, did you provide them, just to make sure? So yeah, everything goes through technology. Most computer purchases will be made through a contract offered by Texas Department of Information Resources, that's DIR. DIR is run by the state. It's almost like a co-op. Texas DIR is a streamlined cooperative purchasing program for state and local government, public education, and other public entities focused in Texas. So they really reach out to the districts, local districts here, and give us the best technology. They've already gone out and gotten bids from Bedell instead of going direct and stuff like that.
So they basically do all like the research for you?
Excuse
And they do a lot of the research for competitive and so forth?
Absolutely. Especially with technology, they'll give you the latest technologies that are out there.
The latest, the greatest, and the best price, and
Yeah.
you're
So-
just focused on that?
Right. DIR offers purchasing support and policy insights so organizations across all levels of Texas government can find and securely implement modern technology at an affordable price. So they're doing all this research for you. So I'm gonna go to district policies and procedures and procurement. This is what we follow locally. All purchases that are requested by San Benito CISD campuses and departments must have one of the three listed below in order to be approved: a purchasing cooperative and the contract number to that particular vendor, a local RFP and contract number to that particular vendor, or 3 quotes from similar vendors and similar products. Every requisition that is approved has to have probably one of these 3. A 3-quote form is provided by the purchasing department so the campuses can properly evaluate the quotes received and justify their recommendation.
On this one, you said it has to have one of these three, like the 3 quotes, it doesn't have to have that?
3 quotes? On which one?
On the procurement, that you said right now, you said it has to have one of these 3 items, right?
All of this apply, well,
There's one back there.
3 quotes from similar vendors and similar products? Yeah, that's if the vendor is not approved by the board or by a co-op, and they're just going to some, Dollar General or something, then they have to get the 3 quotes in order to justify their purchase. 3-quote form is provided, the campus can properly, all fixed asset items, and fixed assets, I mean computers, equipment, any other stuff that needs to be numbered, always gets delivered to the purchasing department. We receive it, we number it. If it's computers, we send them out to technology. They do their thing. When they finish, either he sends his guys to deliver them, or I send my guys to go pick them up and deliver them to the schools. That is our normal procedure, what we do. Now, if it's something other than technology, if we number it, we just take it straight to the campus, say a printer or some other type of equipment. And this is a sample of the 3-quote form that we provide for the district, for all secretaries. Vendor 1, vendor 2, vendor 3. You have the item, description, unit price, and then on the bottom there, it says recommendation. Sometimes they don't recommend the cheapest one, but if they don't, they have to justify. Why are you recommending this vendor?
What if they don't get 3 vendors? What if they don't get 3 vendors?
Well, say for instance, we've had that situation before. Say they contact 3 vendors, but one of them doesn't respond. You at least contacted them, you get the name of the person, the phone number, and you just put no, but they didn't respond to your solicitation. Now, all these are smaller requests. They're not big items. So district training sessions. Every year at the beginning of the school year, we have a secretary workshop. Our purchasing department has a district training session for all secretaries and clerks district-wide at the beginning of the school year. This training provides the secretaries with updates and changes on policy when it comes to purchasing goods and services. This is good, especially, I think this past year, the year before, we had quite a turnaround. We had a lot of new secretaries, maybe like between 4 and 7, something like that. So this part of the district training was very informational for them. I also have directors from other departments, such as maintenance, transportation, child nutrition, police, and federal programs to participate in this training. So they're getting training from all aspects, not only purchasing, everything. From maintenance to how to put work orders, from Ms. Martinez on transportation, Ms. Soto on child nutrition. Then that's all in the morning. In the afternoon, the finance department begins their training, and that lasts for about 2 or 3 hours, and it's everything on finance. Your budget, how to submit your budget, requisitions, so on and so forth. Usually, when a secretary comes in the middle of the year, and she calls our office, they're new. So I reach out and I tell them, ask your principal, let her come, ask them if they can come to our office for 2-3 hours so they can get a quick training on requisitions, procurement procedures, procurement policies, and stuff like that. Normally they do come. They train there with Janie. So this is our current purchasing threshold that we have published on our website. I have reached out to other nearby districts to see what their thresholds are. Excuse me. You went down the wrong way. No, I got one. You went down the wrong way. Okay, there we go. I'm back. So these are our current purchasing thresholds that we have. From 0 to 2,500, like it says there, request 1 quote. It's BZSA approved vendor or approved vendor through purchasing co-op. If order from non-vendor, then we must have justification why. Now, I have reached out to other local districts, nearby districts here, to see what their thresholds are. And to my surprise, they are less restrictive than we are. I mean, we are pretty, I think we're pretty restrictive. And as far as the vendors we deal with, the goods and services that we use, make sure that we get the best of our taxpayer dollars. I mean, I called our 2 neighboring districts and they said, no, from 0 to 500, they can buy, whoever wants, just can get 1 quote or whatever. I said, we are more restrictive. So I have reached out to Region 1 to send out a survey to all the districts in the valley I was telling Ms. Cervello, now that we're trying to get a fresh start, maybe now is the time to be revamping this. So we're gonna get a survey conducted by Region 1 that sends out to all the districts and whoever responds to see what their purchasing thresholds are, to see how they conduct it. And from there, we will probably get together and make a recommendation to see if maybe we can alter this or change it a little bit. But for the most part, I think that, you know, we're doing pretty good, requiring all that stuff that needs to be required because we're maximizing our dollars and we're saving money. That is all I have. I hope I didn't take too long.
Thank you, Mr. Cavazos.
Thank you, Mr. Costas. This is very informative.
Thank you
Thank
very
you.
much. And like I said, if you all have any questions, feel free to email Ms. Cervello and I can answer any questions you all may have. Thank you.
All right, item 2.2, any questions, anything? No, move on to item 3.1, committee concerns. I have one, since we're talking about budget, it's not a concern, it's a request for our upcoming regular board meeting, Ms. Cervellon. I'd like for you and Ms. Monica to look into our budget, even if it's a fund balance. Right now, times are really difficult for everybody, and inflation, rising costs of gasoline, food, holidays are coming around the corner, and I've had a couple, not a lot, but I've had a couple of calls and text messages, you know, what is the district going to do for teachers and staff in reference to holidays and Christmas? And, you know, in the past, I don't think we did it this year. I know that we've provided teachers some assistance through ESSER funds when we could. Excuse me. And in the past, here I go, like Mr. Cavazos. In addition, in years past, we've had for completion of the vector trainings, teachers and staff members have been compensated. That's a lot of trainings that we all have to undertake. And I think that we've not done that this year. And so my request is if we can look into the feasibility of providing our staff some type of compensation for Christmas. I don't know what we refer to it in legal terms, whether it be a bonus, whether it be a stipend or whatever, something within legal norms. But you know, to help them with the rising cost of everything and with the holiday seasons coming up.
But that would be straight across for every department, not just people who took the vector training. If you
No,
also are-
this is, right.
Straight across the
Something
board.
for Christmas, something for the holidays. I believe it's warranted. I think our teachers deserve it. And not teachers, our staff.
Our staff,
Our
exactly.
staff
I think that
deserves
would
it.
be a great thing.
And something to look into, if y'all could do that, please.
Yes, sir.
Thank you. Anything else, ladies and gentlemen? Okay, do I have a motion to adjourn? Okay, we have a motion by Oscar Medrano, seconded by Rudy Corona. All those in favor, raise your right hand. Motion carries 6-0. Thank you, folks. Have a good night.